Today, we're going to take a look at the module on composure. It's a very important part of ethics. It involves how we comport ourselves in public, in board meetings, at agencies, in the newsroom, and more, but also how we comport ourselves in everyday life and the importance of composure as a part of ethics. So we're going to start with the philosophy of Stoicism. The famous Emperor Marcus Aurelius is one of the Stoic philosophers. And I'm going to give you some excerpts from Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. Meditations is a wonderful book. In Malta, I gave it to some of my cousins when they approach 13 or 14. It's never too early or too late to read Meditations and think about calmness and the virtue of Stoicism.
In today's fast-paced world, practicing Stoic reflection can be a powerful tool for personal growth and emotional resilience. Stoicism, an ancient philosophy, teaches us to focus on what we can control and accept what we cannot. This video aims to guide you in incorporating Stoic reflection into your daily routine. By embracing this practice, you can cultivate a deeper understanding of yourself, enhance your emotional strength, and navigate life's challenges with greater ease. Understanding Stoicism. Stoicism is a philosophy that emphasizes virtue, wisdom, and self-control as the keys to a fulfilling life. Founded in ancient Greece, it was popularized by figures like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, who taught that our responses to external events shape our experiences. By applying Stoic principles, we can navigate everyday challenges with clarity and composure, making decisions based on reason rather than emotion. This timeless wisdom remains relevant, guiding us toward a more resilient mindset. The importance of reflection. Reflection is a vital practice in Stoicism, as it allows individuals to understand their thoughts and emotions more deeply. By taking time to reflect, we cultivate self-awareness and mindfulness, enabling us to recognize patterns in our behavior. This process not only fosters personal growth, but also enhances our resilience in the face of adversity. Through reflection, we learn to respond thoughtfully to challenges, transforming obstacles into opportunities for development and strength. Daily reflection practices. Incorporating Stoic reflection into your daily life can be both simple and rewarding. Start by journaling, which serves as a powerful tool for reflecting on your thoughts and actions. Set aside time each day for quiet contemplation and self-assessment, allowing yourself to process experiences. To guide your reflective thinking, consider using prompts or questions, such as, "What did I learn today?" or "How did I respond to challenges?" This structured approach can deepen your insights and growth. Using Stoic quotes. Stoic quotes can serve as powerful sources of inspiration and reflection. Start by selecting impactful quotes from renowned philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca. Take time to meditate on their meanings and consider how they apply to your life. To deepen your understanding, share your favorite quotes in a journal or discuss them with a community. This exchange of ideas can enrich your perspective and foster meaningful conversations about Stoic principles and their relevance today. Overcoming challenges through reflection. Stoic reflection can be a valuable tool for facing life's challenges, such as stress at work or personal setbacks. By reframing negative experiences as opportunities for growth, we can shift our mindset and find meaning in adversity. It's essential to accept what cannot be changed, focusing instead on how we respond to these situations. This approach empowers us to cultivate resilience, enabling us to navigate difficulties with a clearer perspective and a stronger sense of purpose. Conclusion. In summary, practicing Stoic reflection is essential for personal development and emotional resilience. We explored key techniques, such as journaling, quiet contemplation, and utilizing impactful quotes to enhance your reflective practice. By incorporating these methods into your daily life, you can navigate challenges with greater clarity and strength. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe, like, and share it with others seeking.
And as usual, what I do is summarize the whole video for you. Even though I played the whole video here, I do have a summary. You don't have to listen to the entire video when you are reviewing this module for the midterm or anytime you want to review it. Hopefully, this will help you. If I'm not able, or if we're not able to make it during the storm, that is forecast for Iowa this week. Okay. Now, here's the Japanese philosophy called the art of kintsugi. Now, kintsugi is very important. It is about, we all have flaws, we're all broken, but in Japan, the idea of a broken vase is that you can put it back together and make it even more beautiful than the original one. Now, philosophically, the art of kintsugi is that when we are broken, when we have fallen apart because of some life crisis or some disappointment, that we can rebuild ourselves and put ourselves back together with a golden outcome. So let's take a look at kintsugi and then relate that metaphor to, if we're broken, how do we put ourselves back together again?
From Tokyo, Lucy Kraft tells us about an art form that's all about picking up the pieces.
No matter how broken the pottery, Tsuyoshi Koishihara says there's nothing he can't fix. After 40 years and nearly 10,000 pieces restored, pottery repairman doesn't really do him justice. Reassembling a tiny sake cup like a 3D jigsaw puzzle, the Kyoto artisan is an expert in kintsugi, the ancient technique for making shattered dishes whole again. Kintsugi, literally gold and joint or patch, highlights breaks, chips, and other flaws instead of hiding them. Priceless tea bowls and cheap crockery alike become sublime mementos of personal history. He says, originally, kintsugi allowed a samurai to show contrition for breaking his lord's pottery. To prove the mishap was accidental, not an act of rebellion, simply gluing pottery back together wouldn't do. In a post-samurai, time-starved era, superglue is Koishihara's go-to adhesive, meticulously dropped into hairline cracks to hold shards in place. Lacquer is painted onto the spidery breaks, serving as base coat for the crowning touch. A sprinkling of gold dust that makes seams pop. This is not good as new, but new and improved. Collectors use kintsugi to preserve the monetary value of exquisite pieces, but most of Koishihara's work is fixing beloved but everyday items. A cup is not just a cup, he says. It represents moments of your life. Who you shared meals with, who you drank tea with. It's a storehouse of memories.
Kintsugi reflects an old Japanese aesthetic which celebrates and finds beauty in imperfection. But in recent years, a new generation of Japanese is rediscovering and reinterpreting a once obscure repair technique. In a Tokyo workshop, artist Tomomi Kamoshita teaches students how to mix and match beach glass and ceramic debris into kintsugi mashup ornaments. You're a potter who specializes in broken pottery. How did that happen?
In every batch of pottery out of the kiln, there are always a few rejects, she says. I wanted to salvage them. So now her lemons get a new life, with a graft of ceramic or glass like patches on a pair of jeans, a technique known as yobitsugi. With its optimistic message of recovery, kintsugi has taken on a life of its own, far from Japan. There are kintsugi-branded sneakers, cigars, and perfume. A kintsugi-inspired Star Wars helmet. Not to mention pop songs and self-help tips about bouncing back from adversity or even healing political partisanship.
Around the world, kintsugi is having a moment right now. Why do you think this idea resonates with people?
It's not just about broken dishes, she says. Life involves getting hurt, but being wounded is a chance to create something completely new, a profound life lesson for us all. Damaged teacup or tortured soul, in the resilient world of kintsugi, nothing is truly breakable.
Okay, now we're going to
From
take a look
Tokyo,
at
Lucy
we're going
Kraft tells
to
us.
take a look at the African philosophy of Ubuntu, which means you are part of a community. I am because we are. That is a motto of African philosophy. It places the focus on the community. You're an individual within that community, and the community actually nurtures you and helps you understand the challenges of life in a way perhaps that Western philosophy does not. Let's take a moment and look at Ubuntu.
Sometimes, when I hear the sounds of children playing, my mind wanders back to my time in Africa. I remember there was this once I was playing with a group of children, and I proposed a rather stupid game. I had placed a basket of strawberries under a tree, and I told the children that the first one to find it could keep them all to themselves. But what the kids did in response changed me forever. Instead of running off one by one to find the basket, they held each other's hands and ran together. And when they found the basket, they all shared the fruit. When I asked them why they did that, they told me, Ubuntu, how can one of us be happy if all the other ones are sad?
You know, I think that is a wonderful slogan. I am because we are. Certainly in advertising, public relations, and journalism, you are because of your audience. You are because of the community. And it's important for each of you in your respective majors to remember to respect that audience, that public, your clients, and more. Because in communication industries, I am because we are is exceptional. But also, if you're a part of a community, whatever that community may be, it may be a sports community, it could be a family community, or it could be the urge to travel community, whatever it is. Remember that there is strength in that community. And if you are part of it, you are part of something greater than yourselves. Now, we talked a lot in class about trigger words. Trigger words are ones that you could relate to strongly in a positive way or in a negative way. Journalists and practitioners have to know what trigger words make them reactive. So when you get a chance, write down 10 words, not for me and not to hand in, but for yourself. 10 or even more words that when you hear them, they cause your blood to boil, or they make you seem that you want to learn more because you get a good vibe from it. Whatever it is, that trigger is playing on your gut second brain. In other words, if someone uses a trigger word to manipulate you, they have studied you and then they launch it. Or someone can pose can pose as a friend, or that they share all your values, only to manipulate you later. So it's not only about words that trigger negative emotions in you. It could be words that trigger positive emotions in you as a matter of grooming. But anyway, it is important for you to know what your moral absolutes are. When we started media ethics long ago, we talked about moral absolutes. It is right to tell the truth. It is wrong to steal. You will remember that under the truth module. But what are your personal moral absolutes? Would you continue in a romantic relationship if your partner cheated on you? Would you continue to work at an outlet that tolerates racism or sexism? If you know beforehand that someone is triggering you, then you should be able, with composure, with stoicism and more that we're going to get to, mitigate that risk. Let's take a look at a video about what to do when you are triggered.
Have you ever been triggered?
by a conversation or a relationship or a person? I have. I think we all have. It's a pretty natural thing. But the question is, what do we do when we're triggered, and why are we getting triggered? Well, here's my thought for you. I think we become emotionally triggered when one of our boundaries has been violated and we haven't done anything about it, right? When we've drawn a line about what is and is not okay, and someone else is saying or treating us in a way that crosses that boundary. That's what triggers us. So the solution to overcoming that is to start holding your boundaries. And the best way to do that is with a simple conversation about expectations. Here's what I'm expecting, and here's what's happening. How do you see that? You need to let people know what your boundaries are, and when they cross them, hold them accountable to it. It's as simple as that.
So I would like you to journal, or at least think about, what your personal boundaries are. It is important to have those boundaries. Last semester, I got notes from several students telling me that they had started to apply their personal boundaries at work, home, and school, and they became liberated by doing that. They not only had composure, they also weren't triggered. They had a sense that they were in charge of their emotions and cannot have those emotions manipulated by anyone. Now, in the world of journalism, particularly when I studied it, all journalists were taught about trigger words in a different way. In other words, if we were going to interview the mayor and we knew what would rile up that mayor, why in the past he got angry at certain things, we would study those episodes and find the operative words that will trigger a reaction in that person in public so that all can see. Now, I'm not saying this is an ethical thing to do, but I'm saying that this is how people trigger others. And journalists particularly are known to trigger their sources. So let's take a look at a case study about that with Jim Acosta, then of CNN, and President Trump in his first term.
In the midterms.
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in
Not
this
at all.
election
No, not
to
at
try
all.
to keep...
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process. And I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign...
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
They're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not
think
an invasion.
Honestly, you know
miles
what?
away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings
Let
would
me
be
ask,
much better.
if I may ask one other question. Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr.
Excuse
President,
me, that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other
Peter,
question,
let's
if
go.
I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have
I'm not concerned
indictments-
about anything with
that you
the
may have
Russian
indictments coming down?
investigation because it's a hoax.
Are you-
That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter, go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his
Well, I'm
butt
not a
like
big
the rest
fan
of
of
us.
yours either, so
I understand.
to be honest.
So let me ask you a question if I can. You repeatedly
You aren't the best.
Mr. President, you repeatedly, over the course of
Okay,
the...
just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Mr. President, over the course of the last several days of the campaign, sir, Sir, at the end of the campaign, you repeatedly said that Americans need to fear Democrats. You said it would unleash a wave of violent crime that endangers families everywhere. Why are you pitting Americans? Why are you pitting Americans against one another, sir?
Peter, what are you trying to be him?
No,
Peter,
I'm just asking the question.
Let me just tell you, very simple, because they're very weak on crime.
I'm not a fan of Jim Acosta. One of the reasons I'm not a fan is that too often he makes himself the story and not the person that he's interviewing. I have included that segment because there is a transcript that Jim Acosta had in triggering President Trump. I wanted to look at these words: challenge. All right. As you know, Mr. Caravan, not an invasion. You have demonized immigrants. Are you worried? Russia investigation, indictments, worried, indictments, investigation. You know, and then the president lost his cool, stating you're a very rude person and so forth. But it's very important for you to understand that reporters do this, and sometimes they don't get caught by doing it. Now, here is an example of what happened after that question. There was a follow-up question by PBS NewsHour correspondent Yamiche Alcindor, and she's African American. I have to put that on there because the point here is about racism and nationalism. And right after Jim Acosta, she asks the question, and the president is still feeling upset at the way he was treated by Jim Acosta. And this is what happens when you are triggered. The next person that opens your email, the next person that talks to you gets an earful that really wasn't even intended in their direction.
Hi, Mr. President. Yamiche Alcindor with PBS NewsHour. On the campaign trail, you called yourself a nationalist. Some people saw that as emboldening white nationalists. Now people are also saying
I don't know why you'd
that
say
the
that. That's such a racist
There
question.
are some people that say that now the Republican Party is seen as supporting white nationalists because of your rhetoric. What do you make of that?
I don't believe it. I don't know. Why do I have my highest poll numbers ever with African Americans? Why do I have among the highest poll numbers with African Americans? I mean, why do I have my highest poll numbers? That's such a racist question. Honestly, I mean, I know you have it written down and you're going to tell me. Let me tell you, it's a racist question.
And Mr. President,
I love it. You know what the word is? I love our country. I do. You have nationalists, you have globalists. I also love the world. And I don't mind helping the world, but we have to straighten out our country first. We have a lot of problems.
And
Excuse me, but to say that, what you said is so insulting to me. It's a very terrible thing that you said.
And Mr.
Okay,
President,
please,
Mr. President,
ahead.
people have you talked about middle class tax cuts.
Okay, the point that I'm trying to make here is that reporters routinely do this, and many get away with it by triggering their sources. Here's the situational ethic of it. Morally, I don't think the journalists are doing much good for their reports when they trigger sources, because if it lapses into a confrontation, as we just have seen, then all the news is gone. We're not talking about immigration. We're not talking about pending legislations. We're talking about how we treat each other. All right. And in a contentious news environment, which seems to be the norm too often, all we hear are arguments. We don't hear the substantive issues that we need to hear. In my feeling is that Jim Acosta was triggering President Trump on purpose. And what was the result about that? We didn't learn anything about immigration. All we learned about is that they don't like each other. All right. Now, I am a reporter during the Nixon era. I covered President Nixon and a little bit, but most of all, I covered Vice President Ford and then President Ford. But I can tell you, as much as Richard Nixon was criticized and maligned by the media, I have never seen him, another politician, another president, handle the media with so much composure as Richard Nixon? Let's take a look at it.
I have never heard or seen such outrageous, vicious, distorted reporting in 27 years of public life. I'm not blaming anybody for that. Perhaps what happened is that what we did brought it about, and therefore the media decided that they would have to take that particular on. But when people are pounded night after night with that kind of frantic, hysterical reporting, it naturally shakes their confidence. And yet, don't get the impression that you arouse my anger. You see, I have that impression. You see, one can only be angry with those he respects.
President Nixon really knew how to handle those press conferences. Okay, now it's not only the media and trigger words. Sometimes in political debates, we see each candidate using trigger words to embarrass the other on air. Here is a sequence of then candidate Donald Trump using trigger words on Joe Biden, and President Trump did this so effectively that he knocked former President Joe Biden off the ticket, and we had Vice President Kamala Harris, all because of this.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch, overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. It's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere. All over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in caravans.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, under his administration, killed an al-Qaeda person come in his administration, killed three American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people.
So in that case, President Trump maintaining his cool, because Joe Biden threw a lot of trigger words at President Trump, but he just ignored them because he had something prepared for Joe Biden. And that debate really changed history. Now, that doesn't only mean that President Trump didn't get his day. And this happened during the campaign when Kamala Harris lobbed trigger words at President Trump, so rich, prosecuted national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, sexual assault, criminal sentencing. He threw all of that. Now look at her body language when he's talking, and then look at his body language when she's talking.
Then he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you.
She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. The people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from television.
Okay, so the interesting thing is Kamala Harris knew that if she attacked Trump's rallies, because he puts a lot of importance on that, and then throw trigger words at him, that he would collapse and say something foolish on camera, which he did. He overcame that. So I'm just not saying that he should or shouldn't. I'm showing you how candidates lob trigger words at each other and why composure is so important. Now, if I were in class and there wasn't a snowstorm, I would say, on the count of three, everybody yawn. And the reason why I do that is because here is a professor who can't tolerate a yawn in class and loses his composure. There is nothing more embarrassing to the learning process than this.
Two of those would be a telegram, right? Nobody knows what a telegram is anymore because we don't use them. Who just did that? No, I want to know. Stand up. We'll stay here until either that person admits who it is or the person sitting around them tells me who it is. Who was it? Nobody knows? It was back here? I've been hearing it in this room, like, regularly. And I'm not sure I believe that. Let me tell you something, you guys. My bad side is as bad as my pleasant side is pleasant. All right? Don't push me that way. I like to keep things informal in here as much as possible, but understand where the difference between informal and impolite is. And I won't tolerate impolite. If I hear one more of these overly loud yawns, get up and walk the hell out. Yawn outside. Stay out of class. Whatever it is you need to do to get over it. I want to know why 220 other people in this room don't find the need to do that. And you should be asking yourself, why am I the one loser that has to do that and 220 other people know better? Don't push me to this point again.
Well, how embarrassing is that? How do you come back to class the next day? Anyway, if you're interested, you could read about that famous yawn. Now, composure during any kind of danger is not only a good ethical thing, it's required of people who are in charge of others, like your supervisor or a teacher, overlooking, caring for students. Now, here is an example of a teacher not only maintaining composure, but practicing compassion during a potential school shooting.
Welcome back. Caught on camera, a high school coach is being called a lifesaver after stopping a student with a gun by giving him a hug. This happened at Park Rose High School in Portland, Oregon back in May, but we are just now seeing this video. Surveillance video captured Coach Keenan Lowe stopping 18-year-old student who had just came onto the school's campus with a loaded shotgun. After stopping him, Lowe then gave him a hug and held him there until police arrived. Investigators say the teen was having a mental health crisis and was planning on killing himself in a classroom. Last week, the teen pleaded guilty to gun charges and was sentenced to 3 years probation.
Yeah, I show you that because teachers, when they combine composure and compassion, they make a difference. And in this case, it was life-altering. Now, to practice composure, here are some things to do. Do not take things personally, allowing a person to dominate your thoughts. Do not overreact to gossip, perceived slights, or insults. Keep a positive mental attitude and project confidence in everyday activities. Act decisively when situations warrant, but also be accountable for your actions. Remain calm in crisis. Speak less, listen more. Stay calm and resist the urge to respond immediately. You are not responsible for another person's actions. Breathe deeply twice and then exhale slowly. And then I've got this diagram for you about how composure undermines anxiety. So remember your second brain in the gut that has registered all of your emotions. Okay, so suddenly you feel that anxiety and your gut saying you have been here before, and it sends that message, you have been here before, to the amygdala. The amygdala is that little almond-shaped organ in the brain that says fight or flight. So we've been here before, but it goes to the the frontal lobe, and all of a sudden we say, I'm going to ignore that warning. After all, I don't know this new person. I don't know anything about him. Why am I feeling the way I am feeling? All right, now that you've ignored it, then it goes back to the amygdala and you get flee or fight because this is a dangerous situation. Now that you have rejected the gut instinct and went against it, the amygdala says, uh-oh, this might be serious. Do I flee or do I fight? Right now, you become confused. You literally do not know where you are. And then the command is shut down, and it leads to panic. So I hope that you appreciate this module. I think there's a lot of life lessons in it, a lot of philosophy in it. The journalism takeaway is you're going to see more and more journalists using those trigger words against public figures. And it is important, if you are on either side of that debate, if you're a public figure, you must maintain compassion. And otherwise, reporters in particularly will manipulate you. But also in political discourse, you will see them lobbing trigger words at each other. And then finally, write down what are the words that trigger you. Don't share those with anyone because those are emanating out of your secret self. Remember, the secret self is sacred. You don't share that with anyone. Okay, I hope you don't go out in any snowstorm. And if you do, I hope that you get back safely. Thank you for reviewing this module.